Hello and welcome. I'm Professor Lisa Taylor, Professor of Employability and Learning Innovation. I work within higher education as part of an occupational therapy academic team and also have over a decade's experience of employability leadership within the higher education sector.
Hello and welcome from me too. I'm Professor Gilly Salmon and I work in the world of learning design, digital transformation, innovation and academic development. So Lisa and I together created and led the development of the Peer Enhanced E-Placement Project, better known as PEEP, for the past 5 years. So this short video celebrates PEEP's journey, what we set out to do, what surprised us, what we learnt, and what we think might come next. And of course, what we hope will be useful for you. We've listed all the websites for contact and information underneath this video. Over to you, Lisa.
So PEEP began with a challenge at the very beginning of the COVID pandemic in 2020. How could we ensure quality placements for students when the usual in-person, in-place placements weren't available? But it quickly grew into something more powerful, a quality placement, preparing learners better for digital future and helping long-term placement capacity challenges. We quickly added online PEEP acquisition workshops for staff involved in creating and delivering placements to support them to develop their own PEEPs. We conducted action research and development, and others have evaluated their own PEEPs, so we have grown the evidence base for the PEEP. We have disseminated widely and most recently have translated the learning from the PEEP acquisition package into an online, on-demand PEEP acquisition programme. But more about all of that later.
Okay, to tell you a bit more about what's in it, there are 3 main components to a PEEP: the professional standards and specific placement learning outcomes or anchors. Always start with the end in mind when you're designing. The PEEP pedagogical principles and a timetable design to make sure all of the component principles and delivery principles are embedded within the PEEP. And then the online work-based placement environment, which can be any online platform that has basic function, like meeting spaces, places to store resources and information. Nothing fancier than that, technologically, is needed for a PEEP.
So what began as an emergency response has evolved into a robust, evidence-based placement model, grounded in strong pedagogical design and focused on clear learning outcomes, with many resources to make it accessible and viable for others to follow, adopt and adapt. So we worked together to develop and pilot what we called the PEEP acquisition package. Our PEEP acquisition workshops scaled up PEEP into something available for anyone involved in placement delivery to adapt and adopt to suit their context. This involved a flip-style learning design where participants would undertake pre-workshop tasks to grasp the PEEP concept and pedagogical underpinnings, and most importantly, understand and establish the learning outcomes needed to meet their professional body requirements and local student needs. The online workshop itself was an opportunity for placement teams to work synchronously with both of us and their own colleagues, including higher education academics, practice partners, and people with lived experience and experts by experience. They came together to explore the model, its pedagogy, and then adapt it to their own needs.
So thanks, Lisa. I'm going to talk a little bit more about some of the outcomes of the evaluation. You can see much more on the website and what we've written about this, but generally the outcomes of the evaluation have shown these things. that they do build digital literacy and confidence, both for the learners and for the educators ourselves. And it kind of gives structure and depth to peer learning for practice-based education, which is something we all look for all of the time. We also co-developed tools and frameworks like our PEEP building blocks and activities, some of it from my pedagogical work, to make implementation easier, more scaffolded and more consistent. So the opportunity to provide expanded access to difficult placement areas and development of innovative areas was seen as a real positive for the PEEP. So just to be clear, it wasn't a poor substitute for face-to-face, but had all sorts of added value. Over to you again, Lisa.
Yeah, thanks, Gilly. As you said, there were lots of added values from the PEEP delivery. The critical reasoning and team working in the peer groups was enhanced through the PEEP. That's why we called it a peer enhanced placement. And the partnership working between higher education and practice was really enhanced as well. The design once and used multiple times and the sharing of resources really offers that opportunity to help with efficiencies. We've now had multiple evaluations of the PEEP, and it's consistently been shown to be proven flexible approach that supports quality, meaningful placements, ideal for addressing ongoing placement challenges across the higher education sector.
So we do know that thousands of students have now successfully completed their PEEPs, and we've got examples of PEEPs that span across many different professions. Has been over 5 years, reinforcing the flexibility of the design and delivery principles of the PEEP model. And it can be adapted and adopted for different professions and local student needs while still maintaining this robust pedagogy in the middle. So we've written blogs, journal articles, presented at what feels like, I don't know, hundreds of conferences and events. And Lisa's written a book on PEEP based on the design and delivery of a PEEP, as the core principles of the PEEP are applicable across the higher education sector. The interesting thing that e-placements are now normal, what started off as an emergency, and are now a core part of university experiences across the higher education sector.
We've now translated what was the synchronous PEEP acquisition package into an online, on-demand, asynchronous version hosted on the NHS Learning Hub. The NHS Learning Hub programme mirrors the original PEEP synchronous PEEP acquisition package, but is adapted for flexible, self-paced learning. It involves 12 bite-sized sessions, each under 30 minutes, to be completed in order, but not necessarily in one sitting. It's been designed to give staff a clear A to Z of designing and delivering a PEEP. We would like to just add that we have also won a few awards along the way during our 5-year journey, haven't we, Gilly?
We have, yes, and it's been fun.
So when we're thinking about the PEEP, Gilly, some things were part of our original design, like active learning mapped onto the usual placement learning patterns, structure, and professional identity, along with the use of professional standards and equivalents. But there was a bit more than that, wasn't there?
Well, I think it was amazing what you did sort of in the middle of the pandemic to start with. And it is interesting how much has sustained, but that was sort of based on your prior experience in this field, I think. So definitely the intentional scaffolding and the support for learners' journeys, definitely important. But other things emerged. I mean, we didn't expect the public to travel so far, so fast. I think you'd agree.
Yeah.
And then when we started getting it out to colleagues, the creativity of educators shouldn't have surprised me, but it did at the time, using PEEP in ways we just hadn't imagined, while maintaining the integrity and the rigour of it all across mental health nursing, for example, physiotherapy, operated department practitioners, orthoptists, and many more.
It's interesting, isn't it? Every so often we see something on LinkedIn or whatever that someone else has done a PEEP that we weren't aware of. It just grew and grew and has just now become part of everyday practice for some institutions. That peer relationship, I think, as well, that formed online, and the added value of those relationships and the opportunity for some of those peer groups to observe each other was something that has just come through strongly from all of the different evaluations. It's also had an impact on policy changes, hasn't it? So not just within health, but across the higher education sector. The PEEP model has had impact not just on the individual students and their learning, but institutional placement provision and placement strategy across the higher education sector.
And I remember in the early synchronous PEEP workshops, colleagues were very concerned that the students wouldn't like it. Oh, well, we're okay, but they won't be. That wasn't true. They did
Yeah.
like it, mainly, I think, because of the strength of working together, which, all of us love if it really, really works. So I
Yeah,
think,
this sort of safe space is sort of highlighted quite a lot in the evaluations, isn't it? That students feel safe challenging each other in a way that otherwise may not be the case within the in-person, in-place placements.
so do you think that's why the critical reasoning came out so strongly from
I think
PEEP?
so, yeah, because you're within your peer groups, because you've got the mix of the individual learning and the peer learning. Individuals can come to their peer groups with what they think may be the right way to go ahead, but then they've got that criticality and needing to justify their decision making within their groups before then agreeing the best way forward. And that opportunity to critically appraise really how other peer groups are leading groups when you're not leading the session yourself is again that opportunity to step back and review learning and reflect on your own development in a way that otherwise you wouldn't necessarily get the opportunity to do.
For sure. So never underestimate the power of peers. Peer support isn't a bonus, it's sort of central to PEEP's success. But a few other things we learned. We learned that pacing really matters. Students thrive, when expectations are clear. Start with your clear learning outcomes. They're usually professional standards, and that support is well timed. We also learned that design is practice. The more we refine the learning design, the better the outcomes. So over to you, Lisa. What
Yeah,
have
I
we
think,
learned?
I think sometimes you have to be brave. I think what people were just a bit worried about giving it a go, but once you've given it a go, then you could see the confidence building in the placement teams to say, oh, we've done this, we're going to now try this, we're now going to try, and really then it's confidence in innovation, learning innovation, not just around the PEEP, but then beyond the PEEP as well. So yeah, I think it's sometimes taking that step outside what has been a comfort zone over many years of in-person, in-place placements, and then recognizing it's fine to give it a go and then change it and iterate it over time based on feedback from students, just as we would do with any other learning that we do with the students. We always respond to feedback and then change accordingly. And that, the PEEP model offers that opportunity to do that as well.
Yeah, as long as you keep the core of the model, though, because
Yeah.
I think that's really important. And then it will scale, especially
Yes.
when combined with action, research, and local innovation. And we've got a lot of examples. An orthoptics team designed and delivered by an NHS trust, PEEP, and then it was delivered again with students from England and Scotland together. Mental health nursing PEEP was evaluated, and then a subsequent PEEP was created across 5 higher education institutions and 3 NHS trusts for mental health learning and disability nursing students. So it was similar positive results. So, that's real scale coming in, which you can only get online, that you can't get, if you consistently stick to location-based learning. So, just think we should say something about how we work together. Lisa, what do you
Yeah,
think about that?
yeah, it's funny, isn't it, how it's evolved. I mean, we've worked together for 5 years and we've seen each other a couple of times in person, haven't we? But I think what we brought to the table were different skill sets and different experiences, but a shared desire and motivation for student learning. So I think we balanced each other very well.
Yeah, I think we did. Well, we're from different worlds because mine's very much sort of online technology, pedagogy, design. But I think, yeah, it was shared values really. Bit of curiosity about what was going to happen. Respect, perhaps, for each other's skills, belief in learners, and determination, because we've made it sound quite cozy and it wasn't at times, was it?
No, there were quite a lot of late nights and early
Yeah.
mornings getting things sorted, weren't there? But I think what we did all the way through and what kept us grounded was having that focus on solving real problems for students and educators, and having those learning outcomes to keep us anchored on why we were doing what we were doing. Humour's been part of the journey, hasn't it? And we certainly, developed that close working, and we've now got a very well established friendship along the way as well. So there's been that added bonus, hasn't there?
Yeah, super bonus, especially on deadline days.
Yeah.
So, just to talk a bit about what we think is going to happen next, we have been looking back, but there's so much going on around us now still that we're seeing new adaptations all the time, such as multi-professional PEEPs, which is something you can do online more easily than you can on location. And also the potential now to incorporate remote simulations within the PEEP design. Is that how you see it, Lisa?
Yeah, I think what we're finding is that we call them the sort of PEEP adopters, those people who are now using their PEEPs as part of their standard placement provision. They're now seeing how they can sort of innovate the content, and how they're using, as you say, remaining to use those PEEP pedagogical design and delivery principles, but perhaps the content and the way that the peer groups are being used is being implemented in a slightly different way. Really, then maximising the technological advances that there are and the opportunities that higher education institutes have with access to simulation. That again is something that's evolving, and has evolved over the last 5 years as well. So yeah, that's the joy and the beauty really of the PEEP design, is that you can adapt it but still remain very much rooted in those pedagogical principles. But I think what I'm constantly amazed at is something that began as an emergency response has now influenced particularly health and social care placement sectors, but has the opportunity to influence across the higher education sector. And it's really helped catalyse a shift, not only in education and online learning, but the potential of that practice placement learning, and the wider placement thinking and digital transformation. It's very much part of the world that we're in today, isn't it? So we're now working on new resources, training and networks, hoping for more educators to take up the model within and beyond the health and social care sector.
And we remain open to work with placement teams. So it's easy to get hold of one or both of us to talk about this. And, well, we still explain the core of PEEPs, but PEEP is designed to involve because it is a model. It's not a prescription.
So we do just want to say a huge thank you to everyone who's contributed to the PEEP over the past 5 years. People who have researched, learnt with the model, supported us with funding, undertook policy developments, and gave us recognition and encouragement. Wouldn't have been possible without all of the placement teams who have attended PEEP acquisition workshops, tried out the model with their learners, and then fed back and evaluated. Thanks to everyone who's contributed to all forms of dissemination, papers, conference presentations, videos and case studies. Really much appreciated. Thank you.
And thanks from me too. We're very proud of what we've created, and we are excited about the future of the peer enhanced e-placement. So here's to the next 5 years.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.